Hello there, my name's Scott. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the Gini, which is the Genesis style version of the steam machine. And I received this from www.atomiser.gr, who are based in Greece. I'm sure they won't mind me mentioning that if you are in the UK, you can also get them at www.vaporizers.co.uk. Before I start, I must point out I did receive it free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review. My opinion of the product may be true, honest and accurate, as always. Okay, let's go straight ahead then and show you in a bit more detail. Okay, so here we have the four main parts that make up the Gini, which is the Genesis version of the steam machine. Now it is available as like a complete package, but if you do already own the original steam machine, or you've at least got the base section like what I've got here, then you can just get the updated parts and obviously just save yourself a few quid. Okay, so it's all made out of stainless steel, but you may be thinking, well, that doesn't look like stainless steel there, that sort of brass looking centre post. But no, just bear in mind that this is the original steam machine base, and if I'm going by the photographs on the website, it certainly looks like that has now been updated to stainless steel in the like the newer versions. Okay, so the actual base section uses a Ego connection, so that means you can screw it onto any sort of Ego style battery. But me personally, I've been using it with a 510 to Ego adapter, and then like using it on my Pro Vari and anything else that has a 510 connection. So you have the base section, you then have this part here, which is where you're going to sort of feed the wick through, connect your coils up. You then have like the main body, which is a 2ml tank, so you can hold 2 millilitres of e-liquid, and then you have your top cap. Okay, let's go ahead and get this all set up and show you how to wick and wire the coil. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is take this part and screw it into the tank section. Now it will only screw into one end, so you've got no chance of sort of making any mistakes there. And just make sure it's screwed all the way down to the bottom. And then you just need to screw this part onto the base section. Now if you look down the centre there, you can see like a long spike, and that is going to sit inside this centre post here, and then that will create your positive connection. Now when I originally had my steam machine, it did have an O-ring going around here, but I found that when I screwed it in, I couldn't screw it all the way up, and it was leaving the O-ring visible. And so if you've got a bit of a OCD like myself, then that does become a major problem. So I took the O-ring off and found it doesn't cause any leaks whatsoever, so I don't think you actually even need to have an O-ring there. And obviously just make sure everything's nice and tight, and you should be all good to go for the next stage. Right, so for my wick, I'm just going to carry on using the one I've had set up in the Gini for the past sort of couple of weeks. You know, it's still working fine, so I've got no real sort of desire to make a new one, to be honest. Now this was 400 mesh, which I'd cut out at roughly 38mm by 20mm. Then obviously rolled it out to make this nice long thin tube. And then I just held it into a hot flame for around sort of 5 seconds until it started glowing a nice bright red colour. Took it out, let it cool down, and just repeated that a few more times until eventually you get this nice sort of black sort of grey colour appear, and that should be enough to oxidise the wick properly. Okay, so before I go any further, I just want to quickly show you the top part. Now here you have the wick hole, and according to my scientific ruler, this is reading or measuring around sort of 2.8mm. You then have your negative terminal and your positive terminal, and hopefully you can see the positive terminal actually has like a spring-loaded way of attaching the like the top wire, but it is quite a stiff spring though, so it does make it a little bit tricky at times. And then just above that you have this little plug, so when you want to fill the tank up with juice, just pull the plug out, fill it up with juice, and then you can put it back in. But if you do find you're getting any sort of wicking problems, then you can leave this little plug out. And as long as you're keeping it upright, you're not going to get any sort of leakage or anything. But the extra bit of airflow can help if you're having any sort of wicking issues. Okay, let's go on to the next part then. Okay, so I've just inserted the stainless steel mesh wick inside the tank, and then I've loosened off the negative terminal. I'm just going to attach the wire to it. Now the wire that I'm using here is 0.20 gauge Canthal wire. Before in America, I think you use 32 AWG, which is the equivalent. So I'm just going to trap the wire against the side there with my finger, hold it in place, go underneath the screw, and then hold it in place with my thumb. And you can either do it with your fingers if you want, but I've got a screwdriver here, so I'm just going to nip it up. Okay, so now the wire is trapped in place, I'm just going to start wrapping some coils around the wick. Probably going to add around sort of 4 or 5 coils, and then just finish off by making sure the wire is trapped in between that top nut and that little sort of metal sort of collar there. Okay, so let's go ahead. Pull that in between there. You should trap it. And once it's trapped in place, you can just sort of tidy it up a little bit, make it look a little bit more presentable. And you should have something that looks a little bit like that. Okay, so with a little bit of encouragement, I managed to get all the coils to start glowing nice and evenly. If you do find that, you know, especially if like one of the coils isn't glowing at all, if you get like a little toothpick or something similar, just give the coil a very sort of slight nudge up or down, and then that should hopefully move it away from like the problem area, and then it should start firing up, and eventually you should get all your coils to all glow nice and evenly like that. And so let's just give the resistance a quick test. See what it's reading at, and it is a 1.8 ohm coil. Now when it comes to removing the excess pieces of wick, normally I sort of say don't worry about cutters, you know, just hold it tight, apply a bit of tension, spin it around, and it will snap off nice and clean. And you can do that with the negative terminal one, but don't do it with this central one, because it's not really sort of held in place firmly. It's just sort of trapped between the that little washer and the top nut there. So for that one, I would definitely recommend like using a pair of scissors or cutters to just cut it off as close as you can. And for the other one, now you can just apply a bit of tension and spin it, and it should snap off nice and clean. Right, so the next thing to do is fill the tank up with some e-liquid. So just got to pull out this little sort of plug, put it at one side, and also just take your liquid and fill it up. Now obviously it is not a glass tank, so you can't actually see how much liquid you're putting into it, but as soon as you start seeing it coming out the hole there, then obviously you know it's full up. Come on, that's it. And then put the little plug back in if you want to put it back in. You can leave it out, like I said, if you're getting any sort of wicking issues, you can leave it out, and a little bit of extra airflow should help you. Okay, so like I said, the Gini will screw straight onto an Ego style battery, but me personally, I want to use it with the Pro Vari, so I'm going to use a 510 to Ego adapter, which, you know, hopefully you can see I've screwed into the base there. Now, that doesn't come with the Gini, unfortunately, so it is something you're going to get separately. And they also very kindly sent me out one of these, which again I think comes separately, and that will fit on top of your Pro Vari, which you then screw your Gini in, and just gives it a nice, more sort of sleek look. Obviously I have gold plated my end cap here, and these are normally silver, so obviously it would look a bit better if it was actually silver. The only thing I will say though is that it is quite loose on there, a little bit rattly, but it definitely does look a lot nicer. So I'll fire this up now, and we should hopefully get plenty of vapour. It seems to be working okay. Okay, so all that's left to do now is attach the top cap and then the drip tip. Now the top cap has an air hole, and it's quite important to make sure you line it up directly in front of the wick, as that's what's going to sort of get you the most amount of vapour. Now it is held in place by an O-ring, so this means it's very simple to line up, so just line it up and slide it on in place. Okay, so in my last few reviews, people have been complaining that I don't use drip tips that complement like the nice sort of groovy looking atomizer that I'm using. And I have taken those points on board, so I'm going to now attach a plastic imitation wood drip tip, which I personally think looks absolutely rubbish. Okay, so that is the Gini. Let's go ahead and see what it vapes like. Okay, so that was the Gini, and what I'll do now is go ahead and show you in action. So I'm using it on my Pro Vari, which is currently set at 3.8 volts. The resistance of the coil has gone up slightly, it's now reading 1.9 ohms, and I've got the tank filled up with some 18 milligram strength tobacco flavoured e-liquid. It's just a PG based e-liquid. And as you can see, plenty of vapour coming out of it. But Genesis atomizers in general do all tend to be, pretty good for vapour production, as long as you've got that air hole lined up right in front of the wick. It's very rare you're going to get a rubbish Genesis atomizer, to be honest. Throat hit wise, getting a nice strong kick in the back of my throat. Again, like most Genesis atomizers do tend to give you a nice strong kick, unless they've got maybe an overly large air hole. I do find that the throat hit tends to suffer only a little bit compared to other ones, but throat hit wise on this one, getting plenty of throat hit. With regards to flavour, I'm vaping my my regular tobacco flavoured e-liquid, which is what I vape all day, every day. Maybe not for too much longer though, because I've changed the recipe, and the last batch I brought all tastes like your granddad's pants basically, so I'm probably going to have to be looking for a new flavour to vape on. But my last few drops in this, taste really nice. And like I said, because I do stick with the same flavour pretty much all day, every day, and I do use quite a few different Genesis atomizers, it does make it quite easy to compare one against the other. And for me, this is a bang on Genesis atomizer, producing plenty of flavour. The warmth of the vapour. Now, if I was going to say that one is a really cold and the 5 is scorching hot, it's just a warm vape really. I wouldn't say it's hot, but it's definitely not cold either. And I suppose you have to bear in mind that if you made the coil a really low resistance, doing it at the same voltage, then the vapour is going to come out a fair amount hotter. And if you kept it at the same resistance as I've got here, but increase the voltage a lot, then again that's going to obviously increase the actual heat of the vapour. But with the setup I've got here, which is a pretty standard setup, and I tend to have a very similar setup with normal Genesis atomizers. The setup I've got here, I'm just getting a nice warm vape, pretty much just how I like it. So I'd say it's on a scale of 1 to 5, again 1 being cold, 5 being scorching hot, it's probably around 3, something like that, just nice warm vape. Really. The actual draw on it, it's not got a massive air hole, so it's not a tight draw though, but it's you've got a nice bit of resistance there. Again, pretty much just how I like it. I don't like the air holes to be too massive. I like to feel as though there is like I said, a little bit of resistance there, but it's not so small that it's a really tight draw. So if you're going to say that 1 is a really loose draw, 5 is a really tight draw, again, it's probably around the 3 mark, something like that. Now, just bear in mind that these aren't marks out of 5, these are just like a scale. It's actually vaping really nice there, I'm getting really loads of flavour. So with regards to the build quality, I've always been quite impressed with the older steam machine. It is a very nicely made atomizer, and it's great that it's become so versatile now. So I originally done a review on the steam machine, then I've done an updated review on the steam machine because I come out with a new add-on for it. And I suppose technically this is an updated version, an update of the updated version of the review of the Steam machine. I'm confusing myself now. And but anyway, so this is obviously the Genesis version. And again, like with the other versions of the Steam machine, like the build quality is very good. All the parts screwed together very nicely. No little blemishes or marks on the finish. No, everything, very nice and shiny. And pretty much how you'd expect a quality item to come to you, really. And the last sort of thing to talk about is actual like ease of setup. Now, all Genesis atomizers can be a right pain in the arse to set up if the wick isn't oxidised 100%. But on the other hand, all Genesis atomizers can be extremely easy to set up if the wick is oxidised 100%. But it's very hard to be able to absolutely guarantee 100% of the time that those wicks are going to be sort of fully oxidised. So you do need to have a little bit of experience to know how to sort of a few workarounds if you are noticing sort of a hot spot on a certain coil, etc, etc, and that will just come with experience. From a beginner's point of view, I would say this is probably one of the more sort of tricky ones to set up, just because there isn't a great deal of room to manoeuvre them. And obviously it is quite a small atomizer. The actual section of the atomizer where you're going to be wrapping your coils and that, everything's all very sort of close together. And if you've got a wire coming out and accidentally touching something else, it's going to cause you problems, etc, etc. So I'd say for the more experienced people, it's probably not that difficult. But basing it on the average Joe, then I would say 1 being like really easy to set up, 5 being really hard to set up. Again, it's probably going to be around sort of 3. I mean, like I have when I done it today in the close-up shots, I had to spend probably about sort of 10 seconds just sort of giving one of the coils a little nudge because it just wasn't lighting up. But there have been other times where I've been sort of fiddling about with it, fiddling around with it for about sort of 10 minutes, to try and sort of get rid of a hot spot. And there's been other times where I've wrapped my coils up, done it, and boom, everything's, I don't mean it blows up. I mean boom, everything's worked perfectly straight away. So I'd say though, difficulty wise or ease of setup, it's going to be with 1 being easy, 5 being really hard. It's probably going to be around like the 3 mark. Not a great deal else I can tell you about it. It's a nice little atomizer. It vapes a treat once you got it set up nicely. If you only got things like an ego battery, but you still like the idea of a Genesis style atomizer, then it's a really nice one to go for, because it gives it almost like a sort of a hybrid look. If you can get a stainless steel ego battery, it would look really nice with that. But like I said, if you have got something like a Pro Veri, get yourself an ego to 510 adapter, and obviously you can use it on there as well. Okay then, so like I said, not a great deal else I can tell you. If you fancy trying one out for yourself, go along to www.atmomixani.gr, and if you look on the website, it's got eShop. If you click on there, that'll take you through to the actual main website, and then you can obviously just add to cart and things like that. But if you are in the UK, like I said, I'm sure they won't mind me mentioning, because they supply them. But you can go along to vaporizers.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching, and also come along and visit my website at www.e-cig-reviews.com. That's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers guys, happy vaping, see you later.